Good morning, Unity of Pensacola. It is wonderful to be back with you. I so enjoyed visiting with you guys Sunday before last, and it was such a joy to just start a conversation about the science behind the divinity within each one of us. And I have to tell you that today is all about introducing you to this movement called Strong Communities that is focused on each of us owning peace within ourselves by standing in the full expression of who we are and doing that with a shared language of strengths. You know, we are basically trailblazing a path to world peace and raising the vibration of love as we do this, one person and one community at a time. So welcome, and so we're going to walk through a series of slides so that I can just share with you the big picture of what's going on, and then narrow it down to the possible impact that we can have in Pensacola, and then most importantly within the church and within our individual lives. So thanks for joining us for this, and we appreciate your time and look forward to further exploring this. So one of the things that we do as a standard is we utilize a methodology called the POM. I would bet that many of you like me have gone into a meeting and maybe 5 or 10 minutes in, you just go, wait a minute, why am I here? Why in the world have I been asked here? And then those thought bubbles above our heads that think of all the things that we could be doing. And so anytime that we ask someone for some of their time, which is such an incredibly valuable asset, um, we like to start with offering why we've convened, and then if we're successful, what that might look like, and then what the methods would be for achieving, moving from that purpose to the intended outcomes. So with all of that said, our purpose here is just to invite you to entertain joining the Strong Communities movement. And if I do my job reasonably well over the next few minutes, you'll catch the buzz. You will catch the buzz about um, what happens in the world when we own our divine genius and begin to express ourselves fully. You'll be excited for your community, and I hope you'll be curious to discover your own personal, individual, unique genius. The way we'll do that is through my offering a bit of history about our organization and what we do and why we utilize this powerhouse tool called the Clifton Strengths Assessment. And then we'll talk a little bit about evidence of success. We'll talk about it in a linear way, and then we'll talk about it from an enlightened spiritual perspective as well. And then we'll tickle a little bit of what's possible and then how we get started. So I'm going to just roll right into another palm, which is the bigger picture of what is going on with strong communities. So our mission is to harness the potential within people, empower organizations, and strengthen communities of all kinds. And so what we do and what we've done for many years now is to equip community leaders and members with a really innovative approach that becomes a magnet for economic prosperity, particularly in the context of geographic communities, and really lands us in the midst of a strong community culture. So what we see as a result of people investing, organizations, communities, and individuals investing in discovering this language of what is oh so right with each of us, we see community engagement skyrocket. In fact, it's fascinating to me that even just by virtue of taking this assessment, people's personal engagement will elevate by almost 8%, 7.8%, I believe is the number. The employee experience in business organizations is elevated, as is workplace satisfaction. We see heightened emotional intelligence, and if you're not familiar with that, I'm going to introduce you to it a bit in just a bit. So, and another outcome that we see that is just so heartening is we're beginning to see a return to civil discourse. We've kind of lost that ability in our culture to be able to bring our diverse perspectives together and have a conversation around it without becoming totally divided and it becoming a very challenging conversation. So the way that we do this is through a workshop series that we put together that's called The Genius Within. And we provide the experience for individuals and teams and community leaders, and the list goes on and on and on and on and on. And so we're really excited about introducing this messaging into the Unity Church because what we believe is so resonant with Unity principle, and I think you'll see that as we move forward. So a bit about us. We were founded in 2011, and we've always been about cultivating greatness. In fact, you'll notice in our logo that it's an acorn with a thumbprint inside of it. And so we believe that just like every acorn has the DNA to become a mighty oak, every one of us has something to bring to the world that no one else can bring. And our perspective and the way that we contribute in the world is as unique as our fingerprint. The leaf in that logo is about the community embracing each of us individually for what we bring. Each of us, that divine light of God, that spark that we carry of the Christ light within us. So we introduced Strong Communities in 2018, and we'd been doing cultural transformation work in the business environment since 2011. But we'd had so many requests from our business customers to introduce this into all kinds of communities. You know, the ask would be, can you do it for couples? Can you do this for churches? Can you do this for council members or commissioners? Could you take it to DC? And the list just goes on and on and on. And so we committed to creating a curriculum that really served individuals and communities of every variety. And you know, as love would have it, what we discovered is that more and more business environments are embracing the terminology of business community as opposed to organization or anything else. So now we get to boldly claim that we serve communities of all kinds, and love what we get to do. So we piloted this with a development district organization. You have one of those in Pensacola as well that serves as an economic development driver and support system. And we were also initially funded by the USDA in our pilot in Tennessee. So what we found, what we've experienced was really unexpected, and that is that through no effort of our own, only word of mouth marketing and just grassroots organic awareness building, in only 18 months, this workshop reached 14 states and 2 other countries. And so, you know, when you just know the vibration of manifestation is just in hyper sense. It's like all of those divine threads have just woven together so perfectly. That's what we just knew to be so, is that the world was hungry for this, and that this work is so much bigger than we are, and it is of the divine. It is a path to world peace, and we just get to be a part of that journey. And so we're excited that more people are joining us on this journey. We use a strengths-based philosophy for leadership and teams and communities, and we use that tool called the Clifton Strengths Assessment from Gallup to give us a foundation. I'll share more about the science behind that with you in just a minute. So the thing too that really resonates with us, and I'm confident will resonate with you as well, is there are 5 guiding principles around strengths and a strengths-based approach. And the first is that themes are not labels. There's actually 34 themes of talents, which are groups of behavior resident within this 60-year plus body of research. And if you're like me, you've done a handful of assessments in your life at some point. And typically what we find is that we fall into 4 buckets, and then we use that terminology. We label each other with whatever those 4 are, whichever is the one that showed up within our personality. And then about 90 days in, we put that information on the shelf and it becomes shelf knowledge. And but still sometimes the labels stick. And we just believe that everyone is so very, very unique. And we know this. We have the science behind it that proves it, that wearing a label is not supportive of a culture that is always love based. So themes are neutral. There's not one that's better than another. They are all equally extraordinary. And another principle is to lead with positive intent. Now we know that there's only one power in the world, and that is all about love. And so we know that people are generally well intended. They want to contribute, they want to be supportive, they want to be positive. But what we've learned is that we're all so uniquely and divinely wired that even though I may share something with you in the best of intention, the language that I use or the way that I've packaged it up just may be a disconnect for you. And so, if we can learn to lead with positive intent, always lead with the heart of service, but also to receive in that way. So, if I share something with you that doesn't resonate with you, or that feels not like it's not well intended, then to give me the benefit of the doubt that I meant well and explore what the meaning was if there's a disconnect. So leading and receiving with positive intent. Also, this is based on the fact that our differences are our advantages. Holy smokes. You know, what makes us different makes us stronger. We all have so much in common with each other. But when it comes to what we have to contribute to the world, we are all very, very uniquely wired. And so that means that we need each other, right? I used to think I had to be good at everything. Guess what? I don't, nor do you. So if we can understand what we bring well to the table, and we bring naturally to the game of life, then we can celebrate others who bring other natural talents to the world, and we can help each other. So when we were together, we did a handwriting exercise, and that was really designed to demonstrate viscerally what it feels like to play to your strengths versus to fix our weaknesses. And what we know to be fact is that people who focus on playing to their strengths are 3 times more likely to report that they love their life and 6 times more likely to be engaged in their jobs. That's pretty cool, you know. It's like once we get a language for what is ours to do and ours to be, we're just liberated to relax and enjoy and to know what our lane is and live in it with confidence and competence. So, again, what we know and what we shared when we were together is that when we play to our strengths, we absolutely amplify our odds of success personally, professionally, in relationships. The list goes on and on and on, as opposed to when we attempt to fix what we perceive to be wrong with us, which only leads to maybe our achieving mediocrity. And I remember so clearly when we talked about this when I was there, that like me, not on your bucket list. I think that was a pretty unanimous conclusion that we all came to. So I shared with you there that I am, I'm the poster child, or I was the poster child for imposter syndrome. And I lived in mortal fear, y'all, that somebody was going to figure out that I didn't know my butt from page 8, as a friend of mine would say. And that I was really making it up as I went along and just dancing as hard and fast as I could to be what I thought um, my career needed me to be. And it was pretty debilitating. And I'm confident that I'm not alone in that. That at some point in our lives, we've all felt that we were perceived as being very competent in something that we really were very uncomfortable in. So, as I mentioned to you then, this for me was the most liberating experience of my life, because it gave me a language that I was able to take a look back on my career and recognize was the key to my success. That these 5 themes of talent that come so instinctively to me are the key to everything for me. They are the prism through which I look at life, and they are as follows. So I lead with connectedness. So I absolutely believe that everything happens for a reason. And I see these connections between all kinds of resources and possibilities and people. And I follow that in the second with the second theme of maximizer. So I love to take things to the next level. Give me something that is really good, and I want to make it superb. I want to make it work even better. I can polish a pearl until the pearl no longer exists. I learned that my strategic is the way that I become very, very efficient in the way that I do things. And so I mentioned to you probably that it's like MapQuest of the mind for me, right? It's like mullet brain. There's business here in the front, but boy, there's a party going on in the back because I'm always looking at the landscape for where the potholes might be, where we might need to take a different exit, or where we might need to avoid some type of construction on our journey. And futuristic is one that kind of surprised me, but honestly, when I share that with people, they just get so tickled if they've known me for any length of time at all, because I'm so drawn to the vision. I really see world peace. I see us marching toward world peace through this path of each of us coming to peace with ourselves so that we can come to peace with each other, and then that radiates throughout the world. My fifth is belief, and I think I mentioned to you that is totally about my moral compass and my core values that are just absolutely unwavering. And so I feel very divinely equipped. And I am very divinely equipped to usher in, to chaperone the love and the light and the raising of the vibration of love in the world through this movement. And I could not have said that prior to having this language. Actually, just last night, I was at an event where we had a very popular radio personality, and who has experienced this workshop, and someone asked, what what was the impact for you? And her response was, well, I've just launched a new exchange club. If you're not familiar with the exchange club, it's an extraordinary civic organization. And she said, and I never would have thought that I could do that successfully had I not had these results from my Clifton Strengths Assessment. But I knew that I had it within me to do all of the things that needed to be done. And she's perceived to be someone who is very, very large and in charge and confident and competent in a myriad of ways. And so I was really touched by that someone who is so incredibly accomplished was able to contribute in a way that they wouldn't have otherwise perceived that they could contribute. Excuse me. You may recall we played Stand Up If You Always, and so I just want to remind you that there are clues. There are clues to what we do instinctively well, even if we don't have the results of this assessment. So, I recall many of you standing in response to, do you talk to people in elevators and airplanes and stores and groceries and on and on and on and on. And so grateful for people who have this passion for connecting with people. Many of you also stood up for writing down a list of things to do. And many of you were able to remain standing even on the weekends. And so I want to say thank you, thank you, thank you for being people who love to complete things, who love to get it done. And I invite you to send me your emails at Lori@strongcommunities.coach because that doesn't always come easily to me. Um, Solving the plot of a movie before everyone else. We got to see people who have a strategic mindset, who see the bigger picture and are able to dissect the parts. Stand and share with us their instinctive talent for solving plots. And then we had those of us who tend to be skeptical until given some proof. And I am wow, I am so grateful for people who challenge my thinking, right? Who ask me those tough questions to help me crystallize and clarify what it is that I want to accomplish. So these people tend to tell us the truth, and they tend to dig for the truth and ask us why. And so, thank you to all of you who fall into that arena. And then there's those of us who really need to remind the elevator that we're there because we're ready to get started. We're ready to move on in this journey. And so I have a huge appreciation and admiration for those of us who do that, and not talk it to death. So, just in summary, why do we use this strengths-based approach? The truth of the matter is it works. And it works based on what works well. It focuses on what works well. And in this crazy divisive world where we are so quick to point out what is wrong with anyone or everything, the world's hungry to focus on what is oh so right. We know that investing in our talents produces greater success than focusing on our weaknesses, and also helps us be healthier. I don't know that I shared this with you guys, but after I discovered my strengths and got real clear about who I was, I dropped 90 pounds. That's a pretty impressive way for this to show up for me. And I think it's because I just didn't need to protect myself from people finding out that I potentially wasn't who or what they thought that I might be. So the thing that really compelled me to take this assessment was the statistics behind it, the science behind it. I mean, this truly is, you truly are uniquely genius. And this is science that proves it, so statistically validated, that the odds of anybody sharing your same top 5 results is 1 in 278,000. I think that's crazy impressive. But when I learned that the odds of anyone sharing your same results or my same results in the same order was 1 in 33.5 million, do the math. Think about the worldwide population and how few people in the world have your perspective, who see things somewhat like you do. But the reality is, even with those few people, nobody grew up on your street in your neighborhood with your mom and dad, your siblings, with your education background, with your faith walk. Oh my goodness, nobody's had that journey, or your professional walk. And so, what we know is that makes you uniquely genius. That is evidence of the spark of the divine within us. And and we know that we're born with these. So, very exciting time for us. Now, even with this incredible capacity that we have, each of us within us, when we look at the workplace, it's somewhat reflective of the challenges that we have internally with ourselves. And so let me share some stats with you. In the American workplace, only about 30% of the workforce shows up excited to be there, shows up with their A game, gets the mission, vision, and values of the organization, and wants to contribute to its success. Over half of us in the US workforce are checked out. This makes me incredibly sad that when I think about half of the people in the US that are going to work on a daily basis go in only prepared to do what they absolutely have to do. There is no passion, there's no joy in that. It's hard for me to even fathom just going in and doing time, basically. And then the last of these statistics is that almost 20% of our workforce is actively disengaged. And what that means in plain language is folks are miserable. They're just absolutely miserable. And sometimes they contribute to making other people miserable too, or they can undermine the accomplishments of other people. Um, if I am like if I am really honest, I have had an attitude for way longer than I'm proud of sharing. And that this group of people, I just have had an attitude toward the actively disengaged because it's so counterintuitive to me. It's just something that I can't even fathom going into the workplace and not contributing at my highest level. And then one day I was doing a presentation, somewhat similar to this one, and the exercise that we did on our handwriting, the slide was positioned just before this one, and I went, oh my goodness, what if we're asking these people to write with their non-dominant hand all day long? What if what if we don't understand what they do instinctively well, and we're asking them to just do something that is an incredible battery drain on them? Then it occurred to me that even in that 50%, that there are people who fall at the bottom of that. And so it begged the question for me, wow, if people understood and if employers understood, or if congregations understood what people bring to the table, then we could help people get in the right seat. We could help people aim what they do at contributing in a very significant way in all of our communities. We get to see that with great regularity. And so as I mentioned, we talk about some linear evidence. And in a conversation earlier today, someone mentioned that sometimes in our spiritual journey, that we need linear evidence of who we are and of how things are. So, linear evidence of the success that this produces is that it increases engagement in every kind of community. Because it keeps people engaged, then there's less turnover um, in business environments and other communities. This accelerates our outcomes. When we come together and we know who we are and how we are, and we celebrate that in other people, we can move together very swiftly toward some really positive, exciting outcomes. In organizations, it often increases profitability over time because we become more efficient in the way that we do things. Certainly, it brings more collaboration and cohesion to any community, and that gives us more speed in having successful outcomes. And then again, the return to civil discourse. There's such an incredible need, and as we approach um, the elections in the fall, it's going to be just more and more important that we can embrace different perspectives in a healthy way, in a healthy, productive way. So here's another little evidence of success. So as my business partner Sherry and I were launching all of this, we got word that Rhode Island had been using a strengths-based approach for a few years, and it experienced some incredible results. So they had gotten word that they were actually the worst in the U.S. for actively disengaged workers. And so they had the highest percentage of actively disengaged workers. And those are the folks that are really, really unhappy. And by implementing a strengths-based approach in their state, they were able to move that metric from being the worst in the country to number 15. There's another metric that they noticed. This was in 2013 when they saw these statistics. There is an engagement survey that's used by the Gallup organization all over the country, well, all over the world, actually. And within the U.S., one of the survey questions is, at work, I get to use my strengths to do what I do best. Well, Rhode Island was the next to the worst in the U.S. With respect to people getting to do what they do instinctively well in the workplace. And in just over 3 years, they were able to move that metric from number 49 to number 1. I just think that's remarkable. And so it makes me wonder, what else could what possibilities are available to us in communities of every kind? What's possible in Pensacola? Tourism is already extraordinary in Pensacola, but in Rhode Island, it was not. And so, because they've been able to accomplish extraordinary things, people fly in from all over the world to see how they did it. And so, We love, love, love getting to tap into those linear results, but tapping into the divinity within ourselves, oh my word. And this is where the rubber meets the road. You know, we talk about world peace, one person and one community at a time. It all starts with us. You know, what would be possible for you if you stepped into the full potential of your divine nature? If you harnessed that potential to serve the world in the way that you and only you can serve the world. What if you then, with that language, developed your own divine value proposition and were able to articulate it in any variety of circumstances? That was the most powerful for me, was to have a language now for sharing with people what I do well, and it be a neutral language. You know, often I'm asked to serve on boards and or in other initiatives, as I'm sure you are as well. And but now I have basically criteria of this is what I do. And so I begin to question, what is it that you need? What are you guys looking for? What would your expectation be of me? And if it's not a Lori Ware sized hole in that organization that I can fill, then I know it's not mine to do. I know that there's somebody else who's a perfect fit for that. And now I have a language to have that conversation. And the best thing ever about tapping into the divinity within us in this way and having it validated by this scientific tool is when we understand what we bring and then we decide where we want to aim it, what we're passionate about. I got to tell you, that is the recipe for bliss. It's the recipe for bliss. It's the recipe for raising our personal vibration in the world and for attracting what is ours to attract. You know, I often think about how many of us, we have all of this goodness, all of this storehouse of prosperity in every area of our life, just waiting for us to be ready to receive it. For us to understand that it's our birthright, that it's what we deserve, it's our heart's desire, right? And so when we are able to be in that vibration, then we're able to attract our heart's desire, and particularly when we intersect it with our personal passion. So I want to introduce those of you who are not familiar with emotional intelligence. This is going to just trip the light fantastic with it. But at the very basis of emotional intelligence is self-awareness. So this is the foundation of everything we do. We always start with self awareness. And the fun thing about self awareness is that the more we know who we are, the more we claim it, and the more we live it, and the more fully we step into our divinity, then the more opportunity we have to manage how we show up in the world. So, you know, until we really get who and how we are, we can't make choices about the way we deliver things or the way that we might want to calibrate what comes naturally to us for any given situation. The other thing that self awareness does for us is it liberates us to stop comparing ourselves to other people. And when we feel really good about who we are and we know that we're standing in the truth of who we are, then we don't need to make other people wrong for being different than us. We actually tend to become more socially aware and celebratory of what others bring to the game of life. Folks, I want to share with you that when these facets are in place in community of any kind, the model would tell you that it creates social management. A friend of mine refers to it as social force, and I have adopted that too. It's almost like a vacuum that moves everybody forward together in healthy relationship toward common goals. And so, you know, when we consider what that can look like for every community in which we engage, that can be a real game changer for us personally and beyond. So I want to just share with you, Rhode Island had these crazy successful results, and they had put a marker out that they wanted 10% of the population of their state to experience the Clifton Strengths Assessment and some training. And they felt like when they hit 10%, then they would really be able to have shifted something to have that many people share this common language. What happened for them is that 1% was the trigger. And so I thought it'd be fun for us to look at what's possible in Pensacola. Pensacola has, according to Google, uh, Pensacola has 52,713 residents as of 2019. So 1% of that number is 527 people or participants that could earn Pensacola a designation as one of the first cities in the world to have the designation as a strong community. That's very, very possible. That's our marker for the first one. We're also going to then the goal will be to come to reach 10% of the population of various geographies. So we want to just offer that as potential for Pensacola, since you, Unity of Pensacola, are the one bringing this to the Pensacola area and to the state of Florida. So, visiting for just a minute what's possible. So, what's possible for us individually is to share a language for what is oh so right with ourselves and with each other, and to be able to bring that perspective of that shared language toward solving tough issues. I'm sure in Pensacola you have challenges just like every city has. And there's so many opportunities for us to come together and serve our underserved populations. The list is very, very long as to the way that we can utilize this. It's possible for us to recognize that our differences are our advantages, so that we do enable more civil discourse. And very, very important that we instill confidence in individuals who just haven't believed in the past that they have anything to offer. You know, when I started my journey with Unity, I was in the midst of my imposter syndrome and desperately needed to be reminded that I am a child of God. Desperately needed to be reminded that 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 my heart's desire was accessible to me. And so, the opportunity when we draw people into our churches and for them to engage in this shared language, into this conversation, holds lots of potential to change lives. So those are some of the possibilities. And then specific to Unity of Pensacola, we'd love to see you be recognized as the epicenter of this movement in Florida. And you're well positioned to do that by identifying the divine value proposition of congregants and creating an inventory of natural assets. This is one of the things that we love seeing in communities of all kinds is once you share this language, then when there's a need in the community for support, then you can actually reach out to people who are naturally wired to serve in certain ways. And boy, they almost always embrace that invitation because we all like to do what we do well, right? Um, you have the opportunity to become the neutral convener for positive change. And you can do that by inviting city leaders into this equation, elected officials, and or initiatives to lift up underserved populations. In my hometown, there's currently an anti-poverty task force that's being formed, and so we are going to introduce that task force to the Strong Communities Workshop as they move forward. And with the intention that there are going to be people at the table who are experiencing poverty so that everybody has equal ground and equal opportunity to affect change in that arena. Our mission is to empower people and strengthen organizations and to build strong communities. And so typically at this point, people are curious, okay, how do you make that happen? Um, what you're experiencing today is a virtual form of what we have historically called a Strong Communities coffee, and are adopting now the language of catch the buzz. So whether you join us early in the morning and are sipping coffee, or whether we gather in the afternoon over a beverage, um, it's a great way for us to just give you a very high level perspective on what we're doing and how we're doing it. So if you are intrigued and there are people that you know would want to be a part of this conversation, that's a great way to begin to help people understand what this is about. The second step is to invite those people to experience this workshop. I'm very, very excited that we're going to be able to offer you that with much gratitude to Unity of Pensacola. We're going to be able to offer you the opportunity to come and experience this. And then as we come out of that experience together, part of that is we begin to identify what is happening in your church, or what is the possibility of the opportunity within the church to utilize this curriculum for positive change. So we have that conversation. And then we offer a platform that is a mentoring and leadership platform that's strengths based. And everyone who comes to participate in a workshop, we give you a $300 membership for a year into that platform, so that we can keep you connected to resources that help you continue that journey and also help you connect with people around the world. So we want to encourage you today to start earning a PhD in you. Identify your instinctive potential and harness that through this language of strengths, and develop it by contributing in the ways that only you can. Whether that is, it applies at that point to your family, or to the church, or to an initiative, or another community that you're involved in. We just want to encourage you to do that. If you remember, I told you I really thought that I needed credentials to do what I now do, and maybe I needed a degree. Maybe I needed this assessment and this experience of understanding what I do instinctively well. Excuse me, has served as a PhD in me, and I got to tell you, I want you to have that for you. So, what we're going to do on the 7th of March, I'm coming back to Pensacola. I am bringing an extraordinary colleague of mine by the name of Vic Sorrell. You may have heard of Vic. He is an incredibly gifted vocalist, and just has a most inspiring way of touching your heart through his words and through his music. And so he's coming in to Pensacola with me, and we're going to do a workshop for you guys. And it's a 3.5 hour experience. So we'll start at 8:30, we'll finish at noon, and then Vic will be doing the music on Sunday. So you're in for an extra special treat that weekend. And what we're also doing is traditionally, our tuition for this 3.5 hour experience, to dive into the science behind your divinity, is $195 per person. But out of celebration that this is our first Unity Church, it's our first session in Florida. It's in Pensacola or in Florida, and we just want to celebrate. And so we're offering a scholarship, a $100 scholarship for this launch workshop. So I want to encourage you to take advantage of that. And the way that you can register for it, you register at strongcommunities.coach. And when you go to strongcommunities.coach, it looks like this. And you can either click on the menu bars up here in the upper right-hand corner, and then click on calendar. Or I do believe that our team is, as of today, making the first option here, calendar. So you want to access our calendar. Of course, it will show up with February right now, but then there's a place you can click that says next month. So click on that, look at March 7th, and then you can register right there. And what will happen once you register, then you will get a confirmation that has a code to take the Clifton Strengths Assessment, and the instructions to take the assessment. Now, if you've taken the assessment previously, and you did not take it through through us, then you'll need to share your results with us. And so there too are instructions there for how you can share your results so that we can customize some beautiful materials for your experience. So please know this. We are delighted, delighted to have the opportunity to serve you in this way and to help you really step into owning your divinity and sharing the science behind it. You know, there are lots of quotes that I enjoy in this world, and the one that is my absolute favorite up until this point, it is my absolute favorite, and I love to see quotes. So if you're into quotes, then send me something at Lori at strongcommunities.coach. But this one is so true for us, and it's by Margaret Mead, and she says, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has." Please join us on March 7th. Let's be that small group of thoughtful, committed unitics that change the world, because we can. First, by coming to peace with ourselves, and then by becoming peaceful with each other. And it's like a pebble in a pond. That vibration radiates out throughout the world, and we can raise the vibration of love in the world, one person, one community at a time. Thanks so much for your time. I look forward to seeing you soon. You guys take care. Thanks so much.